Chris, thanks for joining me here today to talk about the ideal structure for your business. Whenever you start a business, you've got to choose what entity structure you're going to use. What are some of the common forms of business?
The most common forms of business are sole proprietorships, limited liability companies, corporations, and S corporations.
Of those, which is the simplest to form?
The simplest to form is a sole proprietorship. And basically, a sole proprietorship is a business that chooses not to be anything else. There's no organizational filing needed. The taxpayer that owns the business reports the business income or loss on his or her personal income tax return. One of the downfalls or disadvantages of being a sole proprietorship is that there's no personal liability protection.
What structures do offer personal liability protection?
Corporations, S corporations, and limited liability companies offer personal liability protection.
What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of the C corporation?
A C corporation is an entity separate from its owners. One of the advantages of a C corporation is the ability to issue stock to raise funds to help grow the company. Another advantage is that C corporations are now taxed at a flat tax rate of 21%. One of the biggest disadvantages of C corporations is this idea of double taxation. So the profits of the corporation are taxed at 21%, as I had mentioned earlier. And also when those profits are distributed to the shareholders via dividends, those dividends are taxed again, so double taxation, and those are taxed at the individual's personal income tax rate.
What is an S corporation and how does it differ from the C corporation?
A business can elect to be a small business corporation or an S corporation. An S corporation is a pass-through entity, so the profit or loss from the business flows through and is taxed at the individual shareholder's personal income tax rate. The benefit of that is that it avoids the double taxation issue that C corporations have. But not every business can elect to be an S corporation. There are a few rules that govern S corporations. An S corporation is allowed only 100 shareholders. The S corporation can only have one class of stock, and only individuals, trusts, and estates can be shareholders of an S corporation. Additionally, the profit or loss that is allocated to individual shareholders has to be pro rata according to the share ownership percentage.
Limited liability companies are also considered pass-through entities. How do LLCs and S corporations compare?
LLCs are very similar to S corporations in that they are a pass-through entity and they offer personal liability protection. LLCs are more flexible than S corporations in that you can have different types of members, you can offer different types of interests, and lastly, you can allocate the profits or loss of the business in any way that you see fit. It doesn't need to be pro rata the same way that you do need to do it for S corporations.
Do certain types of businesses lend themselves to specific entity types?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of high technology companies, and those types of business use the C corporation structure because those businesses typically need a lot of capital to grow, and so they are able to issue shares of stock to get that investment that they need. Also with those type of businesses, we see losses in early years, and often those losses are funded by the shareholders themselves. In that situation, we see those types of businesses electing to be an S corporation so that they benefit from that, from the losses that they're funding. And lastly, LLCs are very common, very popular because of their flexibility. One specific type of business that we see using LLCs is real estate, both residential and commercial. And the reason for that being it provides a layer of liability protection from their tenants.
What are the first steps an individual should take to set up a business?
My advice would be to reach out to an accountant or an attorney and work with those professionals to choose the entity structure that is right for your specific type of business.
Chris, thank you. Very helpful. Should you have any other questions, please feel free to contact our office.